president of Livestock Genetic Services, LLC. He's been involved in the cattle industry throughout his life and holds advanced degrees in business and genetics. So please welcome our first speaker, John Genho.
Thanks. Can everybody hear me? All right? I've got the pointer here. Thanks. All right, well, I'm John Genho. I'm from Woodville, Virginia, and manager of Eldon Farms. We're a 7,000-acre grazing operation. We have about half of our farm that's in these small mountains like you see in this picture. So we have about 3,500 acres of open fields that are suited for nothing more than growing grass. We're in the foothills of the Blue Ridge Mountains, so we have no flat ground for corn or for anything else. I like to tell people this is our flattest field on the farm, so that's one that ends up in the picture. We're owned by a family corporation. So what happened was in the 50s, a investor came down and started buying land in Rappahannock County. He put together about 10,000 acres of land at $300 an acre. And everybody said he was crazy because it was worthless. It's an hour and a half from D.C., so you can imagine how that land has appreciated over that, the past 50 years and what that's meant for this family. But that's a little different in some ways because the family is a long-term landowner who's not involved in the operation, and so they hire me to preserve their asset and return cash to them from the asset they own. So the operation's a little different because of that. We right now we run right about 1,000 mother cows on the land, and we also have up to 600 yearlings depending on the time of year. And fortunately or unfortunately, depending on the time of year, fescue's our dominant species. In fact, that's pretty much all we have. You can walk through the fields and find some orchard grass, find some bluegrass, but we've decided that we're going to learn to deal with it instead of learning to replace it, basically is what we've done. And this is sort of one of our typical fields, just to give you a view. The ridge line in the back is the Shenandoah National Park, and so we're just outside of the Shenandoah National Park. So my background is I grew up on commercial ranches. I studied genetics at Cornell University and business at Duke University. So forages are different from what I've studied, but I'm catching on. And then I also run a company called Livestock Genetic Services, which performs genetic evaluations for breed associations or large producers. So with that introduction, I'll get into what we do at Eldon Farms. I wanted to go through sort of 3 guiding principles that we use to make decisions at Eldon Farms. And the first one is that we're a business. And I think that probably seems obvious when you first look at it, but I think that's actually important. None of us, well, hopefully none of us, got into to farming because of the immense amount of money we thought we were going to make. We get into farming for other reasons. We like living in a rural, area. We like the lifestyle. We like the work. We like dealing with grass and with cows and with all of these things. And so the business is sort of something we have to deal with in the background. It's a necessary evil. But nonetheless, we have to look at our operations as businesses. I think that's incredibly important. If you listen to the coffee shop bragging, it's weaning weight, or it's bushels per acre, or it's some biological measurement. It might be price per pound. But we somehow have to move from those biological goals to financial goals for our businesses to be profitable. A second guiding principle is that we're grass farmers. We don't raise cattle, we raise grass. And I think most cattle producers say that and kind of give a nod to that, but I think that's actually really important. I think you probably all know this without me putting this slide up here. These are corn prices over the past 7 or 8 years. And I remember when, in 2004, when things crept up above $3 and it was just amazing. And if you look back to that time, from that time till today, and you look at the increase in prices and the incredible volatility like we've never known before. This is a this is an interesting time to be involved in agriculture. This has had impacts on food production throughout the world, but it's impacted us in a unique way. And my wife told me not to put this slide in, but I did anyways because I like it. But I'll try to explain it. This is the marginal return for putting a pound of gain on a calf. So if I show up at the livestock barn and I have a 500-pound calf and I have a 501-pound calf, the question is, how much is the 501-pound calf, how much more is he worth than the 500-pound calf? That's what this is trying to capture. Right now, that calf is worth almost $1 more. 501-pound calf is almost worth $1 more than the 500-pound calf. A few years ago, if you look in certain seasons, they were worth basically the same thing. That means a 600-pound calf was worth basically what a 500-pound calf was worth. What buyers were telling you is they want calves light. Corn was cheap. We can take light calves, put them in the feed yard, we can get amazing gains and finish them. And what they're telling me now, as a producer of feeder calves, is they don't want light calves. They can't afford to take a 450-pound calf and put him in the feed yard. So they're telling me they want me to do that. They want me to put the weight on him, and the way that I do it's on grass. And so what that's saying is that the grass that is sitting in my field right now is worth more than it was 5 or 6 years ago. It's a replacement for corn. Corn's worth more. My grass is worth more now. And so that changes the way I manage it and what I do with it. So up till a few years ago, we were a typical fescue belt cow-calf operation. You probably all recognize this, the cool season grass curve. That's about what it is where we live. This would be probably May. This would be September, October. What we did is we stocked pretty close to the peak of the fall. We ran as many cows as we could. The summer things were pretty tight, but it's okay. We had some old dry grass, and the cows could get through the summer on it. We cut all of this, and we made it into hay. All the excess spring growth, we made it into hay. There's just a few problems with that. In the fall, we'd wean those calves. We'd put them on corn, basically, some kind of grain, and we'd grow them. Well, we already saw what corn prices did. Fertilizer prices have done the same thing. This relies on making a bunch of hay, and we've got to replace those nutrients. Fuel prices have done the same thing. So this method relies on cheap corn, cheap fertilizer, cheap fuel, cheap equipment. It relies on all of those things to be cheap, and we all know that's not the world we're in today. The other issue is that when you sell those calves in the fall, that's the time when they're worth the absolute least. These are feeder calf prices in Virginia, and you can see that the low point in every weight category is somewhere between November and January. That's the worst time to sell a calf as far as the market's concerned. So what we did is we went from that old method, we did this a few years ago, we went from that old method and we lowered our stocking rate. And we matched the stocking rate to the low point in the summer. What that allows us to do is it allows us to stock all of this fall growth and use it as winter stockpile. And then what we try to do is hold those calves we wean in the fall over and graze them the following spring on this grass, so we have more animals in the spring, and then also bring on outside calves. And so what we've done is what we used to say is we have 1,000 cows. That's just what we have. We hope the forage will match what we have. Now what we say is we're going to grow a bunch of grass, and we're going to bring cows on to harvest it. And if we have more grass, we'll get more cows somewhere. If we have less grass, we'll get rid of cows. So what's become fixed is the forage production. What's become constant, or what's become variable, is the number of animals we have on the operation at any given time. And so that's why I say we've become grass farmers rather than cattle producers. If you grow corn and you have a failed crop, you don't run the combine over the field just because. You don't run it over the field for grain that's not there. So I wanted to point this out. This is basically the way our calves perform over the winter. We'll take the light end of our calves, like 450-pound calves. We'll put them on stockpiled fescue with absolutely no supplements. They'll get mineral, but no supplements. And they'll gain just a little bit of weight from December 1st to March 15th. We've done this for several years, and this is the way it always is. But what happens is they lose all that baby fat from being on mom. They put on frame, and they build a bigger box that's ready to take all that grass in the spring. Between March 15th and June 1st, we'll have groups of cattle that'll gain over 3 pounds a day on grass, on toxic fescue, on green toxic fescue. And the reason why is because of all of those compensatory gains. So when you look at the average from December 1st to June 1st, those calves will gain roughly a pound a day. They'll get almost all of that gain is in the early spring. The winter they're maintaining and putting some frame on. The difference in the values is really what's important more than the gains. In the fall, that 500-pound calf would be worth $430. This is December 08 numbers. That number would be a lot higher today. The following June, he's put on a bunch of weight, and the market's a whole lot better. The following July, it's even better. He's put even more weight, and the market's even better. Now in August, calf slows down growing, and the market's a little worse. So July is sort of the peak month. If you look at this number, $433 value when he's weaned. The next June or July, he increases by 50% in 6 months. If I told you there's an investment and you give me $500 today and I'll give you $750 in 6 months, I think as long as you trusted me, that'd be a pretty good investment, wouldn't it? A 50% return in 6 months. Now, not all of that's profit; some of that's revenue, and so it's more complicated than that. But this is a pretty good way to increase the value of those calves, and this happens consistently. I didn't just cherry pick the 1 year that it did happen. In fact, it's happened every single year for the past 15 years. The markets have always done this. Now this year, this December, cattle prices are pretty high, and we'll see if it does it by next summer. I don't know. So that's why I say we're grass farmers. The constant thing is forage production. We vary stocking rates to match the amount of grass that we grew. That's one of our guiding principles. We're not cattle producers. We're grass farmers, and the cows are the combine. So the third guiding principle I wanted to talk about is flexibility. This is the rainfall in northern Virginia, northern Piedmont, for September and May. So September is the red, May is the blue. Now the interesting thing about September and May and where I live is that both of them have the same average annual rainfall. We get 4 inches in September on average, and we get 4 inches in May on average. But you can see that the spread is a lot different. You see a whole lot more red on this side, a whole lot more red on this side, and a whole lot more blue in the middle. There's a story about the 3 statisticians that go duck hunting. This may have been one of the jokes that's numbered, I don't know. There's the 3 statisticians that go duck hunting, and the duck flies up, and the first one shoots ahead of him, the second one shoots behind him, and the third one says, "We got him." And it tends to be what happens with statistics. On average, we're right, but we never have an average year. And what this amounts to is that 3 out of 10 years in September, we'll have under 2 to 2.5 inches of rain where I live. So 30% of the time, we don't have enough rain to grow our fall stockpile. 30% of the time, we're floating away. In May, 10% of the time, we don't have enough rain, and 10% of the time, we're floating away. So 80% of the time, we're in that middle ground that's sort of a good acceptable range in May. Only 40% of the time are we that way in September. So somehow we have to build this flexibility into our plan. The way we do this is that we go in September, and we say September 1st is the first day of our year, not January 1st. We go in and we ask the question, how many acres could we do without grazing? And we pick a bunch of acres, a bunch of fields, and we defer grazing on those for the fall. In November, we go in and we measure those, and this is a grass plate that Ed Rayburn, we got from one of Ed Rayburn's articles. We go in and the way this works is the yardstick sits down through the plexiglass, and you put it down on the grass and lower the plexiglass down, and it compacts the grass. So if you have thin grass, it compacts more. If you have thick grass, even if it's lower, it may actually measure fairly high. So we go in and we estimate how many tons of dry matter we have. We know how much hay we have. We have all our calves weaned. We have all of our cows preg checked. And so December 1st, we have all of the information we need to make decisions. So over the winter, we say, first of all, the pregnant cows always stay, no matter what. The pregnant cows always stay. Second, if we have enough stockpile, we'll put light calves out on stockpile. Third, we'll put young open cows back out on grass and roll them over because we want to keep them. And fourth, we have to make a decision between those heavy calves. Do we have enough stockpile to put heavy calves on, and the older open cows? So this is the way we go through making that decision. Over the winter, you can't see this really well, but we had polywire right across here, and we took it down just a few days ago and turned the calves back, and they're all on fresh grass. So over the winter, we strip graze those calves on stockpiled fescue, and expect them to basically maintain and put on a little bit of weight like we talked about. So then the following spring, we start selling cows and calves Memorial Day weekend, and we sell through July, which is the peak times. So what this is doing is it's matching the markets to the grass production curves and trying to come up with the optimum system. So those are the three key principles. Farming's a business. We're grass farmers, and we have to build flexibility into our system. So with that, I'll take any questions if we have time.
We might have time for just a couple quick questions.
What is your favorite way to market cattle? Where?
We market through a local auction barn through one of the telemarketing or over the phone basically with the videos. A lot of our cattle in Virginia go to Pennsylvania. And so, because of the Mennonite feeders up there, so we want access to the Western guys and the Pennsylvania guys. Any other questions? We use Simmental Angus cross cattle, so we have a composite basically, Simmental Angus composite. Anything else?
Thank you, John.
All right, thank you.